What a start to FPL we've had, but now it's time to start looking at game week 2 where Reinders is absolutely shaking up the league. Is it time to bring him in? Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today will be my game week 2 transfer plans and team selection. Game week 1 was a great one for myself. Again, we'll get into it. I'm going to put timestamps below, so if you've no interest in watching how my team got on last week and you want to see my team for next week and some of my plans, be sure to skip in, that's fine. Hit the like button and subscribe, and the mini league code is above if you want to join. So let's get straight into it. So quickly before I begin, I just want to say thank you for all the support at the start of the season. And if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, we're on our way to 8,000 subscribers, which will be a massive milestone for us at the start of the season. Hoping to get there by the end of August. And do let me know your thoughts in the comment section. How are you getting on in this first week of FPL? And do you have any questions for your own team? I'll answer as many as possible. Going into my team, like I said, we hit the ground running with 73 points in the first week. A game week rank of 631,000, which is absolutely amazing. And I couldn't have asked for a better start. In previous years, I haven't had as good of a start. Again, not to go back to it, but the year we were second in the world, I started poorly for the first 3 weeks. Within the first 3 weeks, I was 6.2 million, but that should be motivation for all of us, especially if you started poorly. It isn't really a reflection of how you've picked your team thus far. That's not to say there aren't going to be mistakes or players that you think are better, but within the start of the season, you probably want to leave it play out within the first 2 or 3 weeks at least before making any rash moves. So, looking at the actual team, Erling Haaland coming in clutch, that would be the first thing that I spoke about all preseason, how I wanted to go with Haaland to do something a bit different. Differentiate myself from the pack, and if it goes well, I'm going to be rewarded heavily. And so far, so good. Again, I'm not going to hype it up too much because I'm sure within the next 5 weeks, Salah will do some catching up. It could even be next week. So it's good not to get too excited about it, even though we've had a good start, and I am aware of it. But looking at some of the other good moves in my team so far, Cody Gakpo, who got the minutes and didn't get subbed off towards the end of the game, and also stayed on the pitch, which I don't think even I was expecting. And it looks like until Alexander Isak comes in, he's cemented in this team. I don't see any world which he's benched. Now watch, he could be benched next week, but I don't think logically it makes sense. So that's why I'm so happy with that pick. Jorginho Rutter with 6 points, who played in the number 9 for Brighton, which we expected. Wasn't on penalties, unfortunately. We found out very early on that O'Reilly was on them, who had a great game. Rutter himself didn't have a great game, but I do expect him to still start in this next one versus Everton, and we'll get into the team selection after this slide. And he is one of the potential transfers that I'm looking to make out, and I'll speak quite a bit on that in the next slide. But yeah, an assist I was quite happy with. Came off in around the 70-ish minute. But yeah, I do expect him to start next week, and I don't think just because Welbeck, if he's integrated in the team, means Rutter is on the bench. I think there's a chance that he could play alongside Welbeck, or even moves on to the right wing. So I don't see a world in which Rutter isn't involved, and I'd be quite surprised. Next, we'll move on to Sanchez, who came in clutch with 8 points, got that late bonus point. Chelsea looking not great in my opinion, but delighted with the points there, of course. Murillo and Williams, who I was let down by due to a Brentford penalty, which happens. I'm not too disappointed. I mean, I do think the idea of going with the 2 Brentford boys were there, and it just didn't play out in my favour. Interestingly enough, Oli Aina got DEFCON points and not Nico Williams this time around. Williams also picking up a yellow card, which was disappointing. Next is Pedro Porro, who got us a nice 6-pointer. Spurs played well. And moving on from Porro is Kudus, who comes in with a massive 10-pointer. And to be honest, I've seen a lot of people had Reinders going into this game week. And of course, I am jealous, missing out on 10 points. But Mohamed Kudus, who comes in with 10 points for 1 million more, they can't be overly disappointed. And we had a good game week regardless. Bruno Fernandes and Cole Palmer alongside Ollie Watkins, the 3 premiums who are other than Haaland, letting us down. Again, a good sign that the premiums are letting us down rather than a lot of the other guys. I'd much prefer that than vice versa. Bruno, who was 1 DEFCON away from picking up those 2 bonus points, and United picked up nearly 2 XG versus this game versus Arsenal. Sorry, I can't really speak. And also Bruno created 5 chances. So I suppose I'm not surprised that he got 2 points versus Arsenal. I think if you were to ever get 2 points in the league, it would be against Arsenal. I don't think it comes that much of a surprise. and very close to getting DEFCON, did create some chances. United look very well as well, which is promising. So happy to own Bruno, to be honest, and he will get a lot of flack in the community, but I'm happy to hold him on for some of his better fixtures. Cole Palmer, who let us down with a clean sheet, of course, who was really, really poor. Also, João Pedro, who is one that a lot of people own, but I'm happy to hold on to Palmer for the time being, and there'll be a lot of discussion from my team selection in the next slide. Ollie Watkins, who was very, very poor. Again, Villa as a whole quite poor, and Watkins not being a large part of what they're doing going forward. So that was my game week 1 team. Again, very, very happy. Don't be discouraged if you've had a slow start. But yeah, 73 points. I feel like not too many surprises from my own team going into the week. I mean, I did expect Gakpo to start, and if Liverpool were going to get goals, I expected them to be involved. Kudus again had a handy fixture. Rutter, who played in the 9, so won the penalty. And Haaland, who I did expect to do good against Wolves. So for myself, not too many surprises. And hopefully, before we get on to my game week 2 team selection, we can replicate a good result for next week. So on that note, let's move on to some of my transfer plans before we actually pick my game week 2 team. So the one we need to speak about, and the one that's also on top of my bucket list alongside many other managers, the most transferred in player this week, Reinders for City. This is one move that I did look at over the last 2 days. That first day, Reinders was predicted to get an increase in price. He didn't, and then the second day he did. And I decided to hold off on this transfer. And I'm not going to make the move before the deadline. I've made my bed and I'm going to bury it. Is that saying? I've made my... Sorry, I'm being an idiot. Anyway, Jorginho Rutter, I feel like if he's continuously getting minutes in that number 9 for Brighton, whether it's 70 or 80, I don't care as long as he's getting minutes. I'm happy to hold on to him. If it's in the 9, in the 10, or on the wing, I'm still happy. Again, I feel like it's too early to be making decisions like this, regardless of how good runners are. I'm not trying to discredit him because, again, he was phenomenal. One of the best Premier League debuts I've ever seen. And we've had a good fair share of good debuts in the league. So Reinders was amazing. A goal and assist, no bonus points, 10 points, and easy on the eye. I understand the move. For me, again, Jorginho is 6 million. So if I did sell him to Reinders, I'd also free up 0.5 million at the time. Now, if I were to sell him now, it'd be 0.4. So if it comes to this Tottenham game, and he is phenomenal once again, which I'm not trying to knock him, he very well could be. No hassle, I'll bring him in, but I'm really not in a rush to do it. I feel like that first game week versus Wolves, I mean, we did expect City to do well, hence why I captained Haaland. Reinders played really well and was quite advanced due to how they set up. So let's see come game week 2 or 3 what way City set up, how they do versus Tottenham. I feel like this game versus Tottenham is going to be an interesting one because Thomas Frank, I expect to set up more tactically like we did against PSG. Perhaps a 5 at the back with Spence, Danso, Van de Ven, Romero, who's just signed a new contract, and Porro. And then heavy in midfield with Paulinho, Sarr, I imagine, and one other with Kudus and Richarlison, who also played in the advanced position versus PSG on the right forward, similar to Mbeumo. So again, I'm happy to leave this play out. That's not to say it's the best move, but I feel like there's a lot of value in holding on to this transfer. It's easy to be tempted at the start of the season, especially when players and decisions don't go your way. But again, it's a small sample size, so I need to be patient, and that's the advice I would give to those. In what situation would I have made the move to Reinders? If I had someone who was very underwhelming in game week 1. Don't get me wrong, Rutter was really, really poor, but he has a decent fixture in game week 2. So if you had someone who either wasn't getting the minutes at all, or was really, really poor, and you don't expect them to get any minutes in game week 2, or has a difficult fixture, that's where I'd be more interested in going to a Reinders. So from that, let's move straight into our game week 2 team selection. So let me get straight to the team and run through player by player. So Robert Sanchez on goal, Murillo, Porro, and Nico Williams at the back. Cody Gakpo, Bruno Fernandes, Kudus, Palmer, and Jorginho. Watkins and Haaland up top. Let me start with the captain of this week, and this will be the biggest talking point. I'm seeing a lot of polls that are split between Palmer, Salah, who is Newcastle away, and Haaland for those that own him. Even some shouts for Watkins. Where I stand currently is currently on Cole Palmer. I feel like West Ham are really poor in this first game. Cole Palmer is really poor as well, but we know how good Chelsea can be. Like I said, I've Erling Haaland versus Tottenham at home, and this is a really favourable fixture for him. But I do think I'm a bit sceptical based on how Spurs are going to set up. Now, that's not to say City can't break this down, especially playing at home. And it looks like they have a lot of their players back. They could even play Marmoush and bring Foden back, or keep the wingers that they played, Bob and Doku, who looked amazing. But for me, I am a bit more skeptical. I think I'd like to do something a bit more different with Palmer. Again, I say different, not like everyone owns Haaland, but for my own team, I do think this is a good week where Palmer could do well. And I do suspect a lot of managers will default to Salah, and I understand that. He's a big game player. Even at St. James's Park, we know he can do it. But for me, out of my options, I do favour Palmer. So let's move on from captaincy and actually run through the team. We'll start with Robert Sanchez on goal. Again, Chelsea looking poor in that first game, but on a defensive point of view, I mean, they always look somewhat decent. Tosin, who was out with injury, so he's actually one that I talked about on stream. So unfortunate if he went there, but I do think it was a good pick because he would have played otherwise. But Robert Sanchez, again, quite happy with him going into this West Ham fixture. Murillo and Nico Williams playing against on-form Crystal Palace. This is not one I love, but with Eze potentially joining Spurs, I mean, it definitely lessens the blow if it's going to happen. Fabrizio Romano saying there's an 85% chance of Eze moving to Spurs, so let's hope that deal is done for the sake of my Forest defenders. And Forest quite unfortunate in that game versus Brentford to concede that penalty late on. So doubling up on defense, hopefully Murillo can get some more DEFCON points this time around. It's going to be interesting to see how DEFCON actually plays out throughout the season. Again, teams are not going to play as well as the last season. For example, Forest. I don't expect Forest to be as good defensively, but let's hope the individual players like Murillo can still pick up those points. Next, we have a benching decision to make with Pedro Porro and Esteve. Last Sunday, I spoke with Gianni Battici on Fancy Football Scout, and I presented my team with Esteve in it. This time around, I've had a bit more time to think about it, and I agree with what he said. Porro in pre-season did pick up DEFCON versus PSG. He was quite busy. And Porro in that first game on an attacking front wasn't great, but he's going to be on set pieces, and I imagine this will be a large part of this game versus City. So I'd like to see this play out and play the better player for a better team in a harder fixture than going for the likes of Esteve with Sunderland at home, even though it is a favourable fixture for him. I could very much change my mind before the deadline, but that's my thoughts currently. Let's move on to the midfield five. Cody Gakpo with Newcastle away again. Like I said, a big part of me choosing Gakpo was for 7.5 million. 1 million less than Verts. He is always included in the goals when he plays. We've seen this last season with Luis Diaz out. I felt like his minutes were going to be secure. So until the likes of Alexander Isak comes in, I'm not too worried about Gakpo's minutes. That's not to say he can't be benched, but for now, I'm quite confident he'll play. And being part of this Liverpool front three with Ekitike being on form and Salah being a small bit underwhelming, for 7 million less than Salah and 1 million less than Ekitike, I'm happy to run with him. Bruno Fernandes is next, who is, like I said, a bit unfortunate not to get DEFCON last game versus Arsenal. He was a busy bee and created 5 chances, but this game versus Fulham, I do fancy for Bruno. It's interesting because obviously at the start of the game, or at the start of the season, it's hard to predict how certain teams will set up against harder opposition. We've seen it now with Arsenal now, a bit less firepower with Fulham, but I still expect Bruno to do quite well. Brian Mbeumo, who we should note played very, very well versus Arsenal and looked quite lively. And same with Mateus Cunha. So if Bruno can be as creative as he was in that Arsenal game, you'd like to see some returns in this Fulham game before he heads away at home to Burnley. Heads to Old Trafford at home to Burnley. Yeah, he's also on penalties, which I think United were unfortunate not to get one versus Arsenal last week. So make it that as you will. Mohamed Kudus playing against City away. I do expect him to play right forward, similar to how Mbeumo was used at Brentford with Thomas Frank. Kudus was very good in that first game, creating 2 chances and looked very, very lively. He's one that got me off my seat and made me proud to watch Spurs again versus Burnley. I'm not trying to look at Kudus, and I wouldn't sell him to managers just yet. Again, I'd like to see how he performs in a bigger game like City. Spurs, knowingly having a good record versus City, and Thomas Frank, not a bad record versus the Big Six. Let's see if he can set up in a way where we can grab something from this game, and if Kudus can be part of that, happy days. Cole Palmer, who we already talked about, who I'm most likely to captain again. It is between Watkins, Haaland, and Palmer. And with Jorginho Rutter there, I don't think I'm likely to bring in Rounders unless we get some information before the deadline that Rutter isn't going to play. So that leaves us down to our final decision, which is captaincy. I think Watkins is definitely a good option. Don't get me wrong, Brentford were really, really poor. A lot of people predicting that they were going to be poor as well. So there is a case for going for Watkins, who really underperformed last season for Villa on a numbers point of view, and I do expect them to have a big season. I don't think Villa can be any worse than they were versus Newcastle. So Erling Haaland versus Tottenham. Again, if my mind is split between playing Paro and owning Haaland, by the way I think the game is going to go, I'm happy to do both. Maybe Paro can be involved in the goal. Maybe Haaland will score, but Palmer might outscore him. So there's a team for game week 2. Do let me know what you think of it below in the comment section. Again, I'm going to get back to absolutely all of them. And do also hit those buttons for me. Like and subscribe. I'm trying to get 8,000 subscribers, like I said. And I really want to hear what you guys have to think. So thank you for watching another video on the channel. And as usual, lads, I will see you in the next.